Hi folks, Adrian here from Wargaming for Fun. Going to take you through another battle report from the club. Not a competitive one, more us getting to know our armies, have some fun with it. And this battle report, it's my first run out. I say my first run out. It's the first time I'm playing 2,000 points of Ogre Tribes, and I'm taking them against Rob's Kingdom of Bretonnia. So I am... It's not an optimised list by any means. It is the models I have built at the moment. I've always been reluctant to do a legacy army, but we're doing a Battle March League at Mighty Melee, and I thought it'd be an ideal opportunity without too much commitment. So I bought a one of the ogre boxes for Age of Sigmar, and there's enough models in there to do 500 points of Ogre Kingdoms. All of that talk, yeah, all of that rambling, just to say my Ogre army is far from optimal. However, Ogres, even when optimal, are shit. They are far from the Mutt's nuts. They are more the Mutt's mess than the Mutt's nuts. But I am having fun with them. I am having fun. Anyway, 5 minutes in, I'll get off my title slide. Now might be a good opportunity to mention that there will be some some bookmarks for you to click forward to get to the actual battle report, rather than listen to me, my diatribe. Oh dear God. Off we go. Okay, yeah, the game took place at Mighty Melee. I am going to update this slide. I've used it a few times now. But essentially I'm just showing you where Mighty Melee is, where we play. Nice, relaxed time we have there, and you know it's open most evenings, with events tend to be on a weekend. Okay, if you do like my diatribe, folks, oh dear God, and you enjoy this, I would recommend that you go and see a psychiatrist of some kind. But if you could also, on your way out the door, click like. I probably will be asking a few questions in this, so if you could answer any questions. You don't have to answer the question, of course you don't, but if you know the answers to some of the questions, it is useful and will make me a more accurate player and help move us on. And thank you for the people who do point out things that we get wrong and tactics which would improve. And if you subscribe, you're more likely to be recommended it by the algorithm, so you can listen to more of my verbal diarrhea in the future. Okay, so this is a shot of the table, and Rob's just putting down his characters there. Rob opposite me, and we've got Ben, who is relatively new to the hobby. I say relatively new to the hobby, I think he's been playing for decades, but he's new to Old World. So he's in the league, he's doing Dark Elves. I know. Some of you are thinking, what, is that the only faction worse than Ogres? It could well be. It could well be. It's going to be tight between them and Lizardmen. But Ben, his army is going to look fantastic when he's done, and he's building it up. And he just come to watch, to pick up a few hints and tips. I know that's how new he is, that he's picking up hints and tips from me. Guardian heaven. Okay, so this was the basic layout. I'll go through the armies in a bit more detail. So on my right flank, Rob's got a unit of peasant archers. I forget the name of the peasant archers. I think they're just called peasant bowmen. They're not like yeomanry archers or anything like that. They're just peasant archers armed in skirmish formation, and it's their job basically to harass, stand by a point. I think Rob puts 12 of them in, so he can take a couple of casualties, and he still has the unit strength required to keep the points. And then you've got a unit of 3 Pegasus Knights, and I'm fairly sure these were joined by, I think it was the Baron who joined these, the one with the heroic killing blow, the virtue of heroism. He's not there yet because I took this photo while Rob was still putting his characters out, but that's where he'll go. Oh, wrong way. Then we've got a unit of 20 Knights of the Realm on foot, and Rob very much uses these to command the middle of the battlefield. He you know, when you're playing the objectives, baggage train and all the rest, it's handy to have a solid anvil to stand by it, and that's their job. He does arm them with shield and great weapon, So they are strength 5 when they hit, or he can have the choice to go sword and board, which gives them a 3-up armor save if he needs to. Often he'll give them the war banner to give them plus an extra combat res, but I think in this formation, or on this day I should say, he gave the Monster Hunter's Tapestry, which is one of the new banners which stops you getting stomped. Then we've got a very blurry picture of, I think the 6 there and 5 there. So that's 22, isn't it? 22 peasant archers sitting on the hill, so all of them can fire all the way through, and they are behind some defensive stakes which cause problems should I charge them in the front with cavalry. I think it is. I think infantry are okay around them, but cavalry is problematic. If they move, if they flinch, if they turn, even reform, those stakes disappear. Okay, so they're placed at the beginning of the battle. I think it's only like a 10-point upgrade, very useful to have. Then we've got the other unit of Pegasus Knights, a unit of 4, and Rob has gone for these 3D printed ones because they rank up easier. It is tricky when you're playing. I mean, they're great in skirmish mode because you can see the space between them. But I know with Games Workshop from playing against them and playing with them that they are a pain to rank up. I've tried to rank mine up and now go in a specific order. I've used brass rods, but they look weird. They do look weird. But these are quite tasty. Hoping one day GW will turn its attention on the Pegasus and, you know, work their magic on the design. Here we've got the Duke. Now the Duke is armed with the Ogre Blade. Quite ironic, fighting against ogres. And you'll probably work out why today. It's called the Ogre Blade. It's because it's exceptionally good at killing ogres. He's on a Royal Pegasus, and then we've got a Prophetess. Now this is Rob's experimentation. It's a level 3 Prophetess. She's not armed now. She specialises in illusion, and Rob's given her the Meteor Hammer. Now I think she only has 1 or 2 attacks normally, but of course if she gets Spectral Doppelganger off, which is what Rob's aiming for, and he has given her, she is a Lore Familiar, or has a Lore Familiar, the one that enables her to choose her spells, so she does have access to Spectral Doppelganger. I think he's also chose the Crystal Column, the signature spell, the -1 to hit, which would work on the whole unit. Okay. And then, yep, that's it, another photo. Then on my left flank, Rob's right, I've got a unit of Mournfang. Like I say, this is my first battle, really. I've played one battle with a different force of 500 points, but this is my first 2,000 point game, and it is with the models I have. And the 4 Mournfang that are there to protect my left-hand side are armed with great weapons. They do have heavy armour. There's a Crusher in there. I've given them the Fistful of Laurels because I anticipate them being away from my BSB, and that enables them to do a leadership test. And I've given them the Bull Standard. The Bull Standard lets you re-roll impact hits or wounds from impact hits. Impact hits are important for ogres because they don't get stomps. Most of them don't get stomps. They get something called impact hits, which are useful because it happens before the combat starts. They're pretty much initiative 2 across the board. So anything which can cause a few injuries and maybe reduce a few attacks before it gets to the ogre turn is useful. But I don't know, I quite like stomps. Don't get me wrong, I'd take them both, but I'm saying I quite like stomps as if I have a choice in the matter. No, you get impact hits. And the way I see it, the difference between the two, you always get stomps, and you don't always get impact hits, because if someone charges you, you ain't getting impact hits. So that's my Mournfang on the side. Ooh, wrong way. Then I've got a unit of 6 Iron Guts. You can see 2 rows of 3. Now the BSB for the Iron Guts is, it's the one that gives you regen. Oh, come on, brain. Cannibal Totem. That's the one. It's a Cannibal Totem. I've made them veteran as well, so they will have access to re-roll of leadership tests, as well as the full of laurels, which also gives them a re-roll. From there, I've got a BSB, and then next to him, I've got a level 3 Slaughtermaster. And my Slaughtermaster is also a Lawmaster. Well, I say Lawmaster, he has a Law Familiar, and he's got Battle Magic though, because I'm hoping to make these a bit more survivable, and I wanted the Oaken Shield. So that's why I've taken that. And the spells I've got, it's Oaken Shield, I think I took Fireball, and the other one, Arcane Urgency, because I thought it might make my army a bit more flexible for movement wise. You can see they're in the process of being painted. Some are almost done but not finished basing, and all the rest. They'll get there over the next few weeks. It'd be nice to have a break from the Warriors of Chaos Marauders that I've been painting. Tooled up wise, my Bruiser BSB, he only has one upgrade, and that's the Death Cheater. It's 5 points in it. You can make the enemy reroll 1 wound per battle, single use item, and I've got that because I'm aware there's a few Bretonnian players and they often take the Heroic Killing Blow, or Monster Slayer as it's called now, and Killing Blow. So having that, if they do hit an odd 6, I can get them to re-roll it, just to make them a bit more survivable. All my characters have that 5-point upgrade. So the Bruiser has that, as well as an Iron Fist and Heavy Armour. The Slaughtermaster has the Death Cheater upgrade and the Law Familiar. Also given the Slaughtermaster the Spangle Shard, which is a ward save, but if you roll a 1, it dies. Not the Ogre dies, the Spangle Shard dies, so you lose your ward save for thereafter. But I thought it was worth it. It's 35 points. I think that's fair. Then I've got my Tyrant, and I do love this model. I know it's going on for 10-12 years old, but it's aged well, and I'll whisper this into the mic. If you buy this, like from Mighty Melee or one of the others in the UK where you get 20% discount, it's about 36 quid, and that's a lot of model for 36 quid. And like I say, it's tasty. I built him as the Stonehorn because he takes less wounds from multi-wound targets. It's 1 less because of his stone skeleton or something like that, the fluff behind it. Now this guy is tooled up. He's nearly 500 points. He's got heavy armour, but the stone itself has full plate armour, so I'll be using the Stonehorn's armour. He's got Death Cheater. He's got a Tenderizer. Now the Tenderizer is very similar to the Ogre Blade. Very similar. It hits a bit harder than that. And he's also got the Talisman of Protection to give him a 5-up ward. So it costs roughly the same as a Chaos Lord on a Dragon, but he ain't got the mobility or the toughness. I think he's only toughness 5. Might be toughness 6. He's got to be toughness 6 because it's +1 toughness and the Tyrant is toughness 5. So yeah, it is toughness 6. But you know, if you're comparing this with a Chaos Lord on a Dragon, I'd take the Chaos Lord on a Dragon every day. But this is what the Ogres have, and he's tooled up, ready to go. Next to them, I've got a unit of Ogre Bulls. I've got Ogre Bulls and Iron Guts at the moment in the army, again because they're the models I have. And I think if you're playing GW rules, it seems a bit daft on it. We're playing GW's game and we talk about whether we're playing GW rules or not. If you're playing the Renegade pack, you don't have to take a unit of Bulls. If you're playing GW pack, you do have to take a unit of Bulls. Now these are from my original Warhammer Fantasy days, and when I sold off all my armies, 10 years ago, when like most of us did, I kept these because these were made for me by Matt Perks, a good mate of mine, who in the days of green stuff put these together and used stuff out his bits box and painted them up, and they've been on the display shelf up until recently, and now they're coming out to play. Unfortunately, I've only taken photos from the back, but I will take some from the front because these take place as Pride. Matt's done some excellent work, green stuffing and using stuff to make the top hats and all the rest. They look like pirates before you had pirate ogres. They are really good. And then finally, I've got the scrap launcher. Okay, so yep, that's my army. I do like the scrap launcher. 140 points is a good chariot. One of the downsides to it is its leadership. It's Noblars. I think it's leadership 5 or something like that. So, but it does launch a pie plate across the table, and it can move and shoot. So yeah, the reason that's painted is because that's in the league, and most of the stuff that you see painted is because it's in my battle march. Those models took priority to get through as regards painting. Okay. So 20 minutes into the battle. So good job on putting thumbnails so you can miss all the diatribe. Scenario 1. So we're playing straight across the table, 12 inches on from the sides of the table, and we're playing. I forgot my baggage train. I left it at home, so we're not playing baggage train, but we are playing the 4 strategic locations. So one on my hill, one underneath these archers on Rob's hill, and then we've got one on the left and one on the right as well. And then we've also got the special feature, which is this golden tent in the middle of the table. These are worth 30 points per turn, and the golden tent is worth 200 at the end of the game, which can be enough, those points added up over the game, to swing it. They can only be scored by core, the strategic locations, and anybody in my army that's on foot is core. And essentially it's the same for Rob. Anybody in Rob's army who's on foot is core. Okay, so my movement, my Iron Guts move up. They march up as far as they can. On the left hand side, my Mournfang move into the wood. They walk into the wood, and I'm thinking that Rob's Pegasus Knights will be coming down this left hand side with the Duke and the Prophetess, and I'm hoping that if he does charge me, I'll be able to negotiate a disordered charge from him because he's coming into the woods. My Tyrant shuffles up behind the Iron Guts, and then in the middle, my Ogre Bulls are farming this point here for 30 points a turn. The Scrap Launcher, I'm reluctant to move him up because I know at the moment he's out of charge range from the Peg Knights, and he is able to hit anything he needs to from here, and he will be focusing on the archers on the hill in the middle to try and scare them off or cause some casualties so they panic off the table. Okay, in Rob's turn, you can see the Peg Knights start to move up. Now he stayed out of charge range of my chariot on the left hand side, and on the right hand side the Peg Knights have moved up and stayed out of the charge range. And on the left hand side you can see I've got the tape there to indicate the maximum charge range of the Ogre Mournfang Cav, and Robbie's staying outside of that with these Peg Knights. His Knights of the Realm on foot have wheeled slightly to start paying attention to the Iron Guts in the middle, and the archers haven't moved because the stakes are still there. You'll notice a few of them have gone because I managed a hit in the first turn with the Scrap Launcher, which killed 4, but it was less than 25%. Rob shooting from memory. Oh no, that's... And then into my turn 2. Yep, into my turn 2. Not a lot happens. The Iron Guts move up a bit further. I don't march because at this point I want to start using the Fireball spell that the wizard has got, and I'm thinking that in the next turn I can shoot. I'm thinking what was on my mind, because these can see everything, the Peg Knights on the left can see everything and essentially can charge out their own arsehole. They're not limited to any direction, they can go any direction they want. So although I'm thinking they could be coming for the Mournfang here, they've shuffled forward a bit in the trees, so it's still a disorder charge if he comes for me. I know equally, if the space here on the left of my Iron Guts, they could just fly that way and go sideways. So on the, I'm trying to cover the area. I am conscious that these Peg Knights can move left across the table or move towards the Scrap Launcher. So I've angled my Tyrant so he's covering a big area of the table here. Okay, he does have swift stride, so it's 6, 6 and 5. No, 6, 6 and 3 is 15 threat, 15-inch threat range. So he's covering a big section of the table. And the ogre balls, I think I've just shuffled them sideways, if at all. Shooting again, you can see the fireball and the scrap launcher between them. Kill off a few more, but Rob did take a panic chest this time, but he passed it. They were good to go. They weren't even aware that anyone behind them had died. Or, yeah, been flattened by scrap that the nobblers are launching. Okay, then so just a close-up to show you some casualties there. Then Rob, from here, marches. His Peg Knights decide to leg it. Because they've got a 10-inch fly, they can move 20 inches. And that's what they do. And you can see we've got the piece of paper there, folded at 45 degrees. And the Peg Knights on the left, which include the Baron with the killing blow, Monster Slayer and all that, has moved up out of charge arc. So this chariot cannot see to charge. He can see to shoot, but can't see to charge. He can't heroic killing blow it, but obviously this unit should be able to kill a chariot if they get hold of it. And then he does something similar on the left hand side. He works out where the Mournfang arm, you can see we've used the same piece of paper, just flipped it over to give us our 45 degree angle, and then he's marched his Peg Knights up out of charge arc. And like I say, if this was normal cav, they wouldn't be able to charge me next turn because they can't see me because I'm not in their charge arc. But because these guys have got 360, they can charge backwards if they want to. Okay. You will have thoughts one way or another on those. I'm reluctant to condemn it because it's all they have. It's all they have. But it doesn't feel like Warhammer when you can charge any direction. But like I say, it's all they have. And I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to fix it. Because if you give them a charge arc, you kill them overnight. You kill them overnight. So I'm hoping somebody comes up with an ingenious idea as to how to fix it. Okay. Nice scenic shot. I think that's showing the archers here shot the ogre balls, and from memory they put a wound on. Not enough to kill an ogre, but enough to cause some concern. Yep. There's no wound marker there, but I'm fairly certain they put it on. And that's the end of Rob's turn. End of turn 2. Okay. And then, Rob, when he was casting here, he cast Glittering Robe on himself from Illusion, so that it would be -1 because it runs for his turn and mine. So Rob's thinking, if there's any way that he hasn't seen that I could get hold of him, I'm going to be at -1 to hit him. So he casts it. I try and stop it with my Slaughtermaster because he's just in range, and roll a miscast, and then on the miscast I roll a 3, which gives me the worst option. Not as frightening as it used to be. I think in fantasy days, if you rolled the worst one, you just took your wizard off the table. Whereas this fella, 5-inch template, so I've got the pie plate over the top of the wizard's head and take some wound rolls accordingly. I did get off quite lucky because my wizard, although he doesn't have armour, he does have a 5-up ward and a 5-up regen. I think he took a wound, and I think the BSB got away with it and the unit took a wound. So 2 wounds off the worst kind of miscast you can have. No bother. No bother at all. Okay, then in my turn, I reform the ogre balls in the middle, ready for the charge of the Pegasus, because I'm thinking that's the way they're coming. My chariot marches as far as he can to get away from the Peg Knights and to start to put a threat on the archers here, who have shuffled up to within 6 inches of the objective marker there. So Rob is farming 60 points a turn. I'm only getting 30 now, so I have to do something about it. So I'm moving up to take care of these. My Iron Guts shuffled around a bit. No. My Iron Guts declared a charge against the archers, and the archers fled. They fled 3 inches. But we measured it, and I couldn't make it. It was over 12, and the maximum charge on the ogres is 12 inches. So I redirected successfully into the Knights of the Realm, but then didn't roll the distance. I think I rolled a 5 and I needed a 6. Don't even know if I moved that far. But what Rob did do, what Rob did do is, when he moved the Knights of the Realm here, he measured the distance to this corner, because he knew that if I charged the Knights of the Realm on foot, I would have to wheel, and on infantry, well, on all units, you have to count that. And that is more than the 12 inches. I think it was about 12 inches exactly, or something like that. It was a long-ass charge. So I went ahead with the charge into the archers. They fled 3 inches, which put them outside the 12 I could charge them. So rather than just take a failed charge and be charged on the flank by the knights, I redirected into the knights, knowing that I probably would fail it. But if I did, I'd be facing the right direction. I don't fear a flank charge from the archers. I do fear a flank charge from these. But all of that, we measured it and I was out. Not by much, not by much. So although it doesn't look like they move very far, they actually move 5 inches. This fella here moves 5 inches towards these Knights of the Realm, which has changed the angle, even though it's not that evident, because the golden tent is impassable. And what I've done here, my tyrant is waiting to see whether the peg knights go into the ogre balls or into the chariot, so that he can countercharge. That's the plan. The Mournfang on the left hand side have just reformed, ready for the charge of the peg knights. Again, I've put it in the wood, but Rob in his turn, quite cleverly, he put the crystal column there, which stopped my ogres, or my Mournfang, running off into the top left. But he decides to leave it here because it also stops him as well as me. So it limits how many of his troops can go in the wood, which in turn has an impact on disordered charge. Okay, it's not something that would have occurred to me to use terrain which you can cast in order to block your own movement to be advantageous to a charge you're doing. Quite clever, quite clever. And that's where everybody ended up. That's where everybody ended up, waiting for the next round. I didn't have any shooting this time because my Slaughtermaster has done a failed charge, so he can't shoot, and my chariot has marched. And that was the end of my turn 3. In Rob's turn 3, he decides to leave the terrain off, and these peg knights and the characters associated with them charge into the Mournfang. And these peg knights on the right hand side charge into the chariot. So there we see, and you can see here that by doing it the way he has, the peg knights rank up to me, and then they go in the second rank when that's full. So the damson, or I say damsel, prophetess, isn't she? Level 3. She's protected from my attacks because she's in the second rank, but she's got a rule where if she's in the second rank, she can still see for the purposes of magic. So he can still do his glittering robe, he just can't do his normal attacks. The Pegasus and her normal one attack won't get to happen, but she can still do, the spell, the Spectral Doppelganger. Okay, and the other pegs make it, no problem. I don't even know if they had to roll, they were within 10, and they rank up nicely. I say they rank up nicely, you can see Rob's taken one of the guys off. The bases rank up nicely, and the Duke is on the side. Okay, I've got the 3 6s there because I think he was going to die, and I needed a 6 to save, and no one thought it was going to happen. Roll 3 dice, and it happened. And that's what you remember from games. Noblars surviving a charge from peg knights on 1 wound, because in the last roll I make 3 6-up saves. I was quite pleased with that. However, they failed their leadership test and fled. And there you can see the flee. Rob decided to pursue, but didn't catch it. I don't know whether I rolled a 9 to flee and Rob rolled a 7, I'm not sure. But you can see this is the outcome. this Noblar chariot is fleeing at the moment, which I'm thinking is quite tasty, because I can now countercharge with the Ogre Bulls in my turn and my Tyrant. Yep, that's the one on the left hand side where the Pegasus Knights, the Duke and the Prophetess go into the Mournfang. Yep, and that's where the Peg Knights ended up. Now, this photo isn't after all the combat. This is after the Duke with the Ogre Blade hit my unit. And I had read online, I'd heard online, that Ogres are susceptible to the multi-wound weapons. No shit. Yeah, this is just the Duke's attacks with the Ogre Blade. Because he's re-rolling because of hatred, and he's got extra attacks as well because of bonuses Rob's given him. And, you know, I think he wounded with everything. And then it's D3 damage per wound. And my guys have got 4 each. So, you know, he killed 3 of them. The only guy left was the champion, the unit champion, which was ouch. I mean, the Mournfang Cav for the unit's 340 points. So 3 of them, you know, you're looking 75 points each. And 3 of them down to 1 guy on a Pegasus Knight. So they are vulnerable. They may hit like a train, but if you get the charge off on me, it's going to be painful. I did think about issuing a challenge, and probably would next time. But, of course, Rob doesn't have to accept that challenge with his Duke. He can accept that challenge with his unit champion, and exactly the same would happen. Exactly the same would happen. I did not think that I would lose 12 wounds in Mournfang Cav to 1 guy on a flying horse. Yeah. And then it wasn't what we did next. But Rob wanted to test the Prophetess to see what she could do, so it was out of sequence, but he did her attacks next instead of the Peg Knights. Or I think the Pegasus would go next, initiative-wise, but he did her to see what would happen, and she did indeed finish off the remaining Crusher, which cleared the way. And Rob overrun, but didn't overrun into my Tyrant. Thank God and all the holy angels, because that would have seen him off in the middle. Yeah, so that was the end of combat. Then it's into my turn. And my guy, the Noblar Chariot, rallies. I would have preferred it if he had fled, because if he had fled, he would have gone left, right, through, who cares? He wouldn't have been where he is now. And what he is doing there is blocking my Tyrant getting to these Peg Knights. So he's limiting my distance I can move from left to right, and he's also blocking me hit the Knights. So essentially it's the sequence of turns, isn't it? First thing is the rallying, then you do your charges, then you do remaining moves. And this fella ain't charging them. He can't charge because he's just rallied, even if I point him at them. So what I could have done with him is fleeing out the way. Then my Ogre Tyrant would charge, as well as the Ogre Bulls, and I reckon between them they could do this unit and the Baron. However, it's not to be, and that's what it looked like after happened. I still declared the charge because I wasn't sure if I could make it through, so my Ogre Bulls charge, as do my Stonehorn, and there's just not enough room for the space to fit, so that the Tyrant cannot get round to the Pegasus, so he moves up. Rob declared a counter charge with his Peg Knights, so he moves up. And I think the way we did it, because it did get a bit clunky, is they declared a counter charge against the Tyrant. They then made accidental contact with the Chariot, which means they stop and rank up there, and then my Ogre Bulls completed their charge and my Tyrant couldn't. So that was the way. It's funny in the rule book, and it would be good if somebody could explain it, because there seems to be 2 contradictory rules. You've got the accidental contact rule, where if you charge somebody and you accidentally contact them, you end up in combat. And there's also another rule somewhere else that explains you can not make that charge and choose to stop. But, you know, I do like the rules, and I think we're 95% the way there to where everybody wants it to be. But there are still a few areas like that which need clearing up. If you've got any thoughts or easy ways of explaining that, please drop it in the comments. It would be useful. I don't think I'm the only person who struggled. Well, both me, Ben, and Rob were trying to work it out. Ben was kindly looking up rules throughout this game as we were playing. He'd got the app on his phone, and we couldn't establish it. You make a call in on the evening because the game's not important. Even a tournament game's not important on the grand scale of things. But, you know, we were happy with the outcome, and it's our game, so that's all that matters, really. So, yeah. And then, after the fighting, what else happened? The Iron Guts at the top also declared a charge, but failed again. And from memory, they hardly moved at all. You can see they've moved like 3 or 4 inches. Again, I was short on the distance, which was very frustrating. The last one I didn't mind so much because, it was a long-ass charge that they were never going to make. This one was frustrating, though. And I think it was down to the fact that Rob backed up in his turn. But, yeah. So, I mean, I can't remember the minutiae of that movement up the top because my brain was focused on this. But essentially, these failed the charge, which meant my wizard couldn't do any other spells after the ward. I didn't manage to get the ward save off in every round. So these failed the charge into the knights and move forward 3 inches or something like that. Because the highest dice, isn't it? Or the total of the dice. I think it's the highest dice you move. But you don't have your movement to it. So they're ready to be charged by the knights, who have furious charge. So yeah, the advantage to these guys that Rob has is because they have furious charge, he gets the same amount of attacks if he charges or if he receives a charge. So he's not too stressed. He has time on his side, and he knows he's the closest, so he's still farming points off this. And these guys here, who I'm pretty much ignoring, are farming points off this. So the main event here was this fight in the middle. You've got 6 Ogre Bulls going into the Peg Knights, and you've got the Peg Knights and the Baron going into I think they all went into the Ogre Bulls apart from the guy who had to go into the Chariot. But somehow Chariot still survives on 1 wound and 3 Ogre Bulls die. That was the eventual outcome of it. From memory, I think there may have been a challenge involved between the Duke, and I think he got a killing blow off on it. And that's another thing we weren't sure about here. Because from memory, Rob did 3 wounds, one of which was the killing blow. 3 wounds would kill my champion. However, because it was a challenge, the killing blow would do 3 wounds if you applied it first. Then you'd have the other 2, which would give you an overkill of 2. Or if I choose the order, then I would obviously put the 2 wounds on first, and then the killing blow would finish him off, which would be 3 wounds with no overkill. So we had a bit of a debate. I say debate. We were curious about who decides the order. We thought, well, Rob's the active player in that attack because he's the one, so he would decide. And of course, he would decide where it's 5 rather than 2, rather than 3. Why wouldn't you? I'd do the same the other way around. But the news there is that my Chariot still lives. 3 of my ogres have died. But they passed their check because they would have given ground, I'm guessing, because they would have been essentially on leadership 9 because that is my general. Okay. Another photo of it, the eventual outcome. And then into Rob's turn. You can see Rob has Rob's Agile Pegasus Knights. I thought they were going into the back of my Tyrant. They didn't. They went into the back of the Iron Guts. And the Knights of the Realm on Foot went into the front of the Iron Guts. The archers on the hill The archers here managed to put the final wound on the scrap launcher, which took it off. I think he got a couple, one of which had armor bane, and he's saving on a 4-up, but obviously one got through, which finished him off. So he left my tyrant alone. The other thing that surprised me is the peg knights didn't charge into the bulls. They flew over. So these peg knights flew completely over the ogre bulls. So the ogre bulls and the ogre tyrant are staring at nothing in front of them. You can see that from that photo. These guys 20 inches over the top, and they're just thinking, where the hell did they go? So there's nothing for me to attack with these guys, and I am going to be chasing stuff around the tent. These are now unit strength 9, so I'm not scoring. You need a unit strength of 10, don't you, to farm the points, and I'm not. So we've got these farming that point there, and these guys are still at unit strength 10, so they're still farming that point. So Rob's getting 60 points a turn now, and I'm getting nothing. We did some challenges here. From memory, I think the Duke, I had to put someone up who Rob would be tempted by to do a challenge with, because I thought, if I put my champion here up to try and minimise the attacks, Rob's going to take him with someone who doesn't matter. It'll be the unit champion from the Knights of the Realm or the unit champion from the Pegasus he will accept with. So I offered the Slaughtermaster up in a challenge, and Rob took it with the Duke. And I'm thinking the Slaughtermaster is toughness 5, I think. I'd have to double check that. But, he's one of my tougher. He's got 4 wounds. He's not my general, so if he dies, it doesn't affect my leadership. And he's got a ward, and he's got the Spangle Shard, and he's also got regen because of the banner. So he's in a good position, if anybody's in a good position, to survive the attack. So I offer him up, and Rob does accept. And there you can see the photo of these two ready to go at it. And there's the outcome. I kill 1 Knight of the Realm. I don't think I do any damage to the peg knights behind, because Rob's going first on everything. Remember, I'm on initiative 2. I've got great weapons. I think the guy here, the BSB, is the one who killed the Knights of the Realm, but he's just armed with the normal weapons, hand weapon and the Iron Fist. So he gets 4 attacks, but there's no AP on him, and these guys are 3 up. Well, I think they weren't 3 up, I think they were 5 up, because he used great weapons. But basically, anytime Rob got a wound through, it was giving me a wound. I was relying totally on the armour save. Not the armour save. I was relying totally on the ward and the regen to keep him in the battle. And they didn't. They fled. They fled through the Knights of the Realm on foot. And I rolled quite high. I think that double 6 is to show that I've fled 12 inches. I'm not 100% sure on that. But I fled from here to there, but of course, because I went through the Knights of the Realm on foot, they then pivot and chase me. I think they needed 2 or 3 inches to catch me, to kill me, which is what they did. Because after combat, you flee from the unit with the highest unit strength, and that was the Pegasus Knights. Because each one of these is worth 3, and then it's starting wounds, isn't it? Well, each one of these is worth 3. I don't know if it's starting wounds on the characters or not, because they're monstrous infantry. I'm not 100% sure on that, but we know this unit was bigger than that. Yeah, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Yeah, it wouldn't have made a difference if we got that wrong. If we did, I don't think we did get it wrong, because I think we counted starting wounds on the Duke and the Prophetess, which put them as these as the highest. But even if I'd gone the other way, it would have meant the Peg Knights needed the 3-inch charge instead of or 3-inch pursuit, I should say, rather than the Knights of the Realm on foot. So then the Slaughtermaster's dead from the challenge. These 4 guys are all that's left of that unit, and they're dead now because they've been caught. The only reason they're there at the moment was for the photo. Yeah, and that's it. I think we called it there. So if I go up, so essentially that unit's dead here, this unit's dead, Rob has lost next to nothing, one Knight of the Realm and some archers, nothing else is injured, and I've got 3 Ogre Bulls that can't score and are facing this way, and an Ogre Tyrant that can't score and he's facing that way where nothing's there. So you know, the game's over. It's a work night. I think it was about 9:30 when we called it here. We could have played on, but there's little point. If it was a tournament game, then I would, because I'd be trying to conserve points, nick a few, and Rob would be trying to maximise. But it wasn't. It wasn't. It was obvious. It was obvious a lot earlier than this who was going to win. Good game though. First run out with the ogres. The scrap launch is not something I would normally take. The cannon is far better. I have 2 cannons which are yet to be built and painted up, and 2 cannons in this army will be a lot more intimidating than the scrap launcher. I know that costs more points, but I won't have things like the Ogre Bulls in there. I've yet to decide Iron Guts. I suppose it used to be called the Death Star, didn't it? Where you basically, your entire core is in one unit with your heroes, and they run around the table and it's hard to kill. Not that I'm keen on playing that way. I think I'll go down the monster route, and even if it's no victories, it'll still be fun having lots running around the table. Because if you've got one guy on a Stonehorn or Thunder Tusk running around, it's relatively easy to avoid. If you've got 2 or 3, not so much. Not so much. You know, you're going to have to deal with that. And this Ogre army will be a challenge to unlock. They're tough to play with. They do need some love from GW, but I do adore the models. I like the fluff behind them, and I will play with them. But at the moment, my main army is Warriors of Chaos, and that's what I'll be back to playing next week, ready for the tournament prep. This is a fun, chill army that I'm using in Battle March and from shits and giggles, and a break from painting something different. You won't have learned anything from today that you didn't already know. If you can help out with the questions, that'd be great. If you've got any strats regarding ogres and what to use and what not to use, that'd be very useful. Death Cheater didn't come into it in the end because the Heroic Killing Blow, I keep calling it Heroic Killing Blow, Monster Slayer, was on the unit of Ogre Bulls. It wasn't on the heroes. Okay. Again, if you found any value in this at all, please click like. It does help YouTube see us as having a little bit of value, and they will recommend us to more people if you do. And again, thank you in advance for any comments you make, and I'll catch you again soon. If you'd like to see the Battle March games, please say as well. I think I'll cover them, but they will be a lot shorter than this, very, very much shorter. Okay, I'll call it there. All the best. Take care. Catch you again soon. Bye.